Hey world, this is Kim Keish.
This is Yaya.
It's your boy Mikey Everything, and you are tuning in to Shy Connections. I look like a comedian, don't I?
On this episode of Shy Connections, we will be discussing the history and upbringing of Chicago comedians. Did you know Chicago is one of America's largest stomping grounds for comedic talent? Shy-style comedy developed in the 19th century, where the first ever comedy club was opened and the first faces of comedy were introduced. Today, we focused on who were inspired by the Shy comedy scenes, including legendary club, All Jokes Aside. We interviewed comedians like Sampson McCormick, Mona Aburmishan, and Brian the Wildcat Smith. Here's what they had to say.
Wood could a woodchucker wood if a woodchuck could chuck wood.
And we are going live.
I am sitting here with Brian the Wildcat Smith. How you feeling today, Brian?
I'm feeling quite fancy.
Well, you are quite fancy. You got
Thank you.
quite the resume as
Thank
a comedian.
you. Yes.
You done commercials, films, parodies. You're an actor. You recently did a Tostitos commercial,
Yes,
right?
I did, yes.
Yeah, you're riding high.
Yes, I hope my landlord is watching this. I'm trying, man, I swear.
Well, if you owe back rent, you don't want your landlord.
Well, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't
All
watch
right.
this.
You're also the winner of the 2015 Shaq All-Star Comedy Competition, correct?
Yes.
Which is a huge comedy competition that went on for several years. Are they still doing that?
No.
No?
I think I was the last winner.
Last winner? Yeah, but I know it went on for several years. It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to jump right into it. We got a couple questions for you, Brian. We won't take up too much of your time.
That's okay. I paid for parking for an hour and a half.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah.
You know those last parking people, they don't
And
play
when
around.
I get there, if I'm not done, I'm sitting in my car till my time runs out. Okay? I'm petty.
Right, you better, okay? Because it costs a lot of money to park in the city of Chicago, right?
Yes.
It's crazy. So, tell us about how you got your start as a comic. Take us back a few years back when you first got started. Tell us how you got started.
I'm basically a class clown turned professional.
Okay.
I was always getting kicked out of class, and my teacher was like, "Hey, you're gonna stop interrupting the class, or I'm calling your mother." And I'm like, "Look, what else can we do?" So she invited me to join the speech team, Thornton Township High School, Harvey, Illinois, class of '96, and I'm glad that she saw the talent at that age and gave me a vehicle to kind of run with it, and just kind of kept going from there.
This week we're talking to the beautiful comedian Mona Aburmishan. Oh my gosh, she's from Chicago, guys. She's a stand-up comedian and a producer. Oh my gosh, she's a speaker for the U.S. and the Middle East. How cool is that?
Pretty
I
cool.
bet you get to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. She has her master's in international development. So she's not just beautiful, she's not just funny, but it's brains backing up behind her.
Aww.
I love that about her. Oh my God. She's fluent in 3 different languages. She's the first Arabic and Muslim woman to perform at Carnegie Hall.
Thank you.
Setting trends. A lot of people especially women, are going to follow behind that.
Chicago women.
Oh my God. Chicago women. Oh my God. She's the owner of the Comedy Bowl, and she went to Dubai to perform a special piece for Comedy Central. We're going to have to definitely get into that a little bit more. Okay. And what I just found out, guys, she's a human, walking, talking encyclopedia. So this is going to be definitely interesting. So with that being said, we're going to get started. I'm going to turn it over because I know you guys did not tune in to hear my mouth. We're going to give it up to you.
All right.
Can you give us a little bit more about your background? Who is Mona?
Okay. So, even though I look Puerto Rican, I am actually half English and half Palestinian. So my dad immigrated. My dad immigrated in 1971 to Chicago, and he worked at a restaurant, an Arab restaurant, and this hot chick walked in, my mom.
Of course. I was like, wait, where's this going?
And he's like, hello, I like your style.
Ooh.
And so they got married, and they made me. And there's three of us sisters. But being that I'm half Palestinian and I'm half white, or a white American, there's always been this dichotomy of balancing, like I was born in 79, so you had the 80s and the 90s was not the best time for Palestinians, because it was like, there's always been like terrorist attacks and stuff like that had Palestinian name. And then once 9/11 happened, then you add the Muslim dynamic of, like, I'm just walking target for kind of hatred in a way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So with that piece, I've always felt different, right? Because I never felt like I kind of
fit in anywhere.
Perfectly, right? So I always was observing everybody. Plus, I was extreme when I was young in high school too. I was overweight, and I always felt like I never fit in. So most comedians, the reason why it's just proven. Most comedians tell jokes and observe societies because they don't feel like they're part of it, and they're typically, all the greats are minorities. So like you have Jews and you have blacks that are a minority, so they can observe the majority without posing threat.
Right.
So I'm not that I'm that, but it's more like, since I never felt like I fully belonged, I was always observing. I would always observe, like, all the high school students that had, I don't know, prom dates, or, like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Man,
Stuff
I
like that.
totally understand where you're coming from with that one.
Right.
Oh my God.
So hold on, you went to Ghana when you were in high school.
Yep.
So when you came back, it was hard to acclimate, right? Because I lived in Germany when I was in high school, and I came back, and I was like, I've seen the world. Like, I was a Palestinian that had gone to the concentration camp, and it changed my relationship to Jews. It really did.
wow.
Like, when you understand the pain of your enemy, then they're not your enemy anymore. You understand what's going on. And so I come back, and everyone's like, oh my God, prom. I'm just going to do this prom and this stretch. Like, oh my God, don't you understand the world,
That's exactly what happened to me.
Right.
Like you mentioned, on my trip to Africa, when I actually were there, Ghana was celebrating their 50-year independence.
Oh, I remember this period of time.
Yep. When we went there, we visited 2 of the slave castles.
Oh, man.
And
I got goosebumps. Ooh.
Remember the you can smell.
Yes.
It's just the iron of the blood and the chlorine trying to just humble it, and we had a moment of silence, and just everyone, even the babies, were crying that went and visited.
Yeah, you can feel
it. And when
it.
I came back, I was just like, this is what we're focused on.
Yeah.
So I totally relate.
Right.
I am here with the incredible comedian Sampson McCormick. Just stepped off the stage, like literally like 2 seconds ago. Like, you're glowing and sparkling and glittery and rainbows and all of that great
Black
stuff.
folks just do that in the light anyway. Okay, black folks, you put black folks in the light, we shine. That's why people be hating on us.
Even in the dark, we still gonna shine.
Hella.
So your show today was great, incredible, extremely relatable. Man, you really got down to the nitty gritty of what it is to be a black gay man and a black gay comic. Can you give us a little bit of some insight towards what has happened, what your struggle is happening? What has been your biggest obstacle that you had to overcome? I know you told stories while you were on the stage about all kinds of experiences that you had. If you could share with us one.
Ooh. Sometimes I think the biggest challenge is just knowing that we have the strength to keep going.
Absolutely.
Every day we wake up and we're like, can we do this? And so it's just the constant reminder that the fabric that we come from, not just as LGBT people or same gender loving or get whatever way, I like men, whatever you call that. And as black people.
Yes.
The fabric, I'm always, observing where we've come from as black people.
Yes.
And so it's just sometimes really reaching for that strength. And I have to ask my ancestors and the universe and God and whatever it is to help me. And sometimes it's just continuing to put that one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because it takes a lot of tenacity to work in this industry.
And not just and I think people forget, because people they look at entertainment and they go, well, that's glitz and glamour. But they forget that the same biases that you experience as a black man or as a black gay man or as a woman, you experience that in the entertainment industry because people equate that value to money. And so, if it doesn't have green on it, and a lot of us, they don't look at us as marketable unless we're being, buffoons.
It's the typecasting.
Typecasting.
Yeah.
And and like I said tonight on stage, I wouldn't feel right if I stood up on stage and did that, I could.
Yeah, we all can.
We all can do that.
Absolutely.
But I mean, can you? I like sleeping good at night. They said there's an African proverb that says, "The softest pillow is a clear conscience."
In the 1840s, newspaper cartoons, later known as comics, began to appear in newspapers when radio and film started, roughly about the same time. Chicago's famous for being a city of broad shoulders over the decades and has developed an international reputation for splitting sides. Chicago style has developed from 19th century vaudeville through the rebellious comics of the 1950s like Jack Benny and Amos and Andy. Stand-up comedy began to receive renewed attention in the 1970s with the making of Peoria's Richard Pryor exploding within the Midwest Chitlin Circuit. The Chitlin Circuit is a collective of performance venues throughout the eastern, southern, and upper Midwest areas of the United States that were safe and acceptable for African American musicians, comedians, and other entertainers to perform in during the era of racial segregation in the United States, from at least the early 19th century through the 1960s.
And you use comedy as your outlet. And when you say you're writing, how do you correlate to make your writing? Just what does the writing do for you?
So the writing is, and so I've gone through phases. So as a stand-up comedian, I've been extremely hard on myself on writing good jokes. I took a class with women on how to do stand-up, and I'm like, I hate this. It doesn't feel right. It's like the beat doesn't feel right. Right. It just feels like it's contrived. It's manipulative, and I really believe, I think the wave of comedy is going in my direction, which is, are you familiar with Don Rickles? Don Rickles used to just riff off the cuff, and people would want to sit around him in the front row, and he could have the president next to him, and he would rip on the president, he would rip on the audience, but it was always coming from love. It was never anger. And so he would bob and weave some jokes or some funny observations, but really and what I believe, what I want to do, and what I'm really good at doing is being a conductor.
Gotcha.
Right? So all of my material I really like material that brings people together and gives a piece of wisdom and changes, that's why I think comedy changes the world, because you take a piece of information, and all the comedians that ever impacted me were actually social activists, because they'd say something and they'd hide it in laughter.
It's some truth to I'm ever joking.
Yes, that's right. So the comedians that never really had an impact on me were ones that were just, you could feel the fakeness. You could feel kind of like they're acting. And that's also why you can see the difference between a New York comic, a Chicago comic, and an LA comic. The ones that are getting huge success, and I literally just came from that festival. The most important comedy festival in the world, in history, is in Montreal every single year. And the ones that were getting all the awards came from where?
Where?
Chicago.
Oh, man.
Lil Rel, Dion Cole, all of them.
But Chicago is coming up on the map, though.
We've been up.
Man.
Because you know why? Because from Bernie Mac, rest his soul.
He was awesome.
And you know what he did, unlike all the other ones? I get goosebumps. I know you're here, Bernie. All right. He always came home. He went and filmed. He did whatever it took. He's like, all right, got to go home. And he always went back on the south side, 79th and Cottage or something like that. He always came home. Chris Redd, who's blowing up. All these guys. I work with them, but Chicago is this beautiful hybrid of the intense, truth-telling of New York and the zany acting of LA. We're in the middle. Yeah. We're this beautiful kind of hybrid, and the thing that's awesome, because so many of our comedians are leaving, we have such turnover on the stages. So we have so many opportunities for people to come through. So you got a lot of people coming from all over the country. They come to Chicago, they learn how to be good, they get access to something, and then they leave.
Yeah.
So I'm not going nowhere.
I'm glad.
That's why, when I was in South Africa, I'm like, you got to get to Chicago. You want to be a good, you for real want to be a good comic? They'll go to New York because they're connected with Trevor Noah, or they'll get their TV spot in LA. But many of the big ones that establish, and we'll go into the South African comedy scene in a second, but they're like, I didn't feel like I knew how to be a good comic. I was like, you miss Chicago and Detroit. Chicago and Detroit will teach you something, because the Chicago scene, the fact that we're constantly turning over, but also, this is the trip, the fact that we're still so segregated, you actually have to work hard. Yeah. Because what is my joke gonna hit in a Latino room, and in a black room, or in the the far black suburbs? Is it gonna work in? I once performed for 60 Israeli women on the North Shore. And the host didn't want to tell them that I was Palestinian. I was like, you're gonna
Wow.
save this? You're gonna save this for the end? Like, yeah,
When
we're,
are you
we're
gonna
let
mention
him,
it?
Yeah, we're gonna let him know later. I'm like, yo, I'm standing in front of the fireplace, all right? For real. I was standing in front of a fireplace. There was 60 Israeli women. I'm like, okay, I just don't want to make them mad because they could come at me. And it was all one love. Like when I said we're the same. Like Israeli women teach Palestinian women how to demand more, how to be more independent, how to speak our truth, and I got a standing ovation. And when I mean Israeli, I don't mean American Israeli. I mean literally Israeli, where they only speak Hebrew, and they mean English is their second language.
Gotcha.
And the level of the affinity and love. So when it comes for me doing stand up and writing, because that was the question, it's. I can contrive and just come up with stuff where I can observe stuff, but really the whatever shows up in that room is what I need to address.
Yeah.
So before I walk into a space, I bless it, like, because it's a church, it's an orchestra hall. You know, you've got, when people sing together or they laugh together, their hearts synchronize. So I bless the space. I stand backstage and I look at all the people like through the curtain. I'm like, all right, universe, please reveal here tonight who needs healing, because there's always someone who came to a comedy show because they got something going on at home.
What are you working on? What do you have coming up?
So, constantly touring. I'm playing with the idea of recording another stand-up special. I want to. We did, in 2013, we did Chick Better Be Funny. People are still looking at that. And I'm also producing a scripted piece right now. I'm also working on another film, and I'm slowly getting towards a documentary on racism in the gay community. Which we need to talk about.
We need to open up that can of worms and just let it fly.
You know, because we like to believe, oh, we can get married now, and that's where it ended. But yeah, that's for gay white men.
Yeah, and let me tell you this. I had a black cisgender heterosexual male be extremely surprised recently when I told him that there is racism in the gay community. And then he asked me, well, how does that work? How can you be gay and racist? Believe that it does happen, especially in the city of Chicago and Boys Town.
Yeah.
This episode of Shy Connections Network was brought to you by Neuro Kitchen Arts Collective, where they provide young people with freedom, responsibility, and tools to find their artistic edge. Check out their showing of Summer Technique artwork, Friday, August 3rd from 6 to 7 p.m. located at Independence Park. They also have fall editions coming up. For more information on the Neuro Kitchen Arts Collective and their fall editions, go to neurokitchen.org. That's neurokitchen.org.
All Jokes Aside was a comedy club on the south side of Chicago, which catered to almost exclusively to the African American demographic. It opened in 1992 with 275 seats in 1994. The company had a turnover of $470,000. It was so successful that it opened a second location in Detroit, Michigan, and its success led to a series called Comic View on BET that mimicked the All Jokes Aside format and catapulted the careers of almost every comedian that graced the stage. When you see names like Steve Harvey, Bernie Mac, Jamie Foxx, Charlie Murphy, and D.L. Hughley, you are almost always sure to hear three words that tie them all together: all jokes aside.
So, one question that we wanted to focus on today was, what would you say your biggest struggles as a black comedian in this predominantly white industry? What would you say your biggest obstacle and struggle has been?
Doing comedy in Chicago is extremely segregated.
Yeah, we live in a segregated city.
Over the last few years, we've been doing a lot to desegregate it. I spent way too much time on the South Side doing jokes. Because on the South Side, you know, I might do a show, I might get paid $200-$300 for 20-30 minutes. You come to the North Side, $25.
Really?
So being a parent and a person with bills, I spent a lot of time where the money was, and most recently in the last 5 or so years, I've been kind of diversifying my portfolio. But one of the hardest things is to continue to do this. You have to want to do this. You know, when shows don't go right, Chicago has such a bipolar weather. You know, it gets really cold, gets really hot. When it's really hot, people want to be outside, so if you don't do a show outside, you know, the people might not come. We have a blizzard, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's just really hanging in there and doing this without compromising my morals.
Yes.
Because Hollywood wants to, they hire people that they can control. Your agent will talk to somebody and say, "Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, he'll love it." Tell them yes, and then come and try to convince you to do it. So without compromising my morals, I've got 3 kids. I didn't want to just fly off to LA and leave my boys and my daughter. So now that they're getting older, I'm having more freedom. But I think one of the hardest things to do is not compromise your morals and just keep going and come up with new material. Because when people come to shows, they don't care what you're going through.
Right.
They don't care that you're late on your rent, that your daughter's asking more questions than you can answer. They don't care about that. And it's a job where you have to go on and be on. If you're not funny, you might not get paid, especially on the road.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
just hanging in there is the hardest part.
Yes. So you speak about diversifying your portfolio. When you say that, give us some insight to what you mean by that.
I mean that what you want to do is focus on being funny to everybody. And it's not that black comics aren't funny to a white audience. It's just the material's not relatable. Because the average person on the other side doesn't really know what we go through. Black audiences, they like more of the slapstick humor. They really don't want to think, nothing against my black people. I mean, I'm black. But they really don't want the cerebral approach. Doing shows at the Laugh Factory, they appreciate it a little more. They read books, so you can expand your vocabulary. You can talk about things. If they don't know what's going on, it's your job to bring them into that world.
Absolutely. And one of the best parts about your comedy is that you are so relatable, and that you bring up these themes and these people in our family that we all have one.
Yes.
So one of the things that is hilarious that you do is that you do like imitations and different characters. I've seen you do a kid. I've seen you do somebody's Newport smoking auntie.
Yeah.
So where do these characters come from, and why? What made you incorporate them into your comedy?
Well, just the majority of my jokes, I don't write. These are things that have happened to me, and I just kind of exaggerate the truth. I see little kids all the time, doing things they shouldn't do. Saw this little kid at the gas station. He knew everything about cigarettes. He knew all the brands. My mama said she want a pack of Newport Longs in the box. If you don't have Newport Longs, she says she'll take a pack of Salem Lights in the green box. I'm like, why isn't this kid coloring or playing with the chalk? He shouldn't know all of this. So I just kind of expanded on it. My aunties are fancy divas. They, no matter what day it is, they're gonna have on a sequin shirt. They're gonna walk through the room looking like a damn fish. My father is he's such a riot. He could have been a comedian, but he just worked at the steel mill. So I try to incorporate friends, family. I'm a people watcher. Sometimes I have a car, but I'll ride the bus and just watch people. I ride the train and just watch. My friends will tell me stories, and they don't know on the other line. I'm writing it down. I'm not paying them for anything. But it's real life. It's people that snore. I was in a club and I saw a guy in a wheelchair rolling around looking for somewhere to sit down, and I'm like, you're already sitting down. Like, you're selfish. Like, move out of the way. I'm trying to get to the bathroom. So, things like that. Of course, you come up with things, but the majority of it, I believe it's the gift and the curse. I could be at a funeral, and I'm like, wow, I'm coming up with so many jokes. And now my family's like, when somebody dies, they're like, we want you to do some comedy. And then I'll do it, and I'll roast the family, and then somebody will call me up. They're like, how was the show? I'm like, I killed it.
So you said you got all of that stuff you're working on. Anything else outstanding that you're working on?
And that's it. And I have my personal project, which is every day challenging myself to be a better person, spiritually, creatively, mentally, emotionally.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest challenge for me, and then it trickles down and that affects my art.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but I mean, I do a lot of things. A lot of the things that you see, they come directly from me. I don't have a team of writers or anything. So anything creatively that you see, it comes from me, and I like for that to just be on point.
Absolutely, and it is on point.
You know, so it's one thing at a time.
Absolutely. I wanted to give props to you because you are a black gay comic, but your show is funny enough that anyone would be able to come and laugh at it. Not just a gay person, not just a black person. You have your material is good enough that it's relatable to anyone. You know?
You know, my biggest audience, and thank God they can't see them, but there are some gorgeous black women over there. And the biggest audiences for me have been black women, liberal white people. Listen,
liberal white people catch on to anything.
Baby, and they bring the coin.
They will bring the coin.
Hello,
Sponsor.
Netflix. I got 4 people sharing my Netflix account. Liberal white people are paying for that. And you know, I have a very diverse audience. I'm very lucky to have a very diverse audience that exceeds black gay men, which I always thought it would be black gay men.
Absolutely.
But we're still working on that.
Sampson, who's the best comic of all time?
Oh God, it's a tie between Moms Mabley and Red Fox. Those are the pioneers.
Ooh.
Everybody's like, and these young kids, they go, oh, Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart, no. I love Kevin Hart. He was right place, right time. You know, little man complex is cute, is funny. He makes it work in the movies. The greatest, the ones who set the blueprint, they were Moms Mabley and Red Fox. And I could get technical, but I'm not going to get into that.
Come on,
you have to come to the show for the lesson and talk to me afterwards.
Chicago is also the home of Second City, known as the world's premier comedy club, comedy theater, and school of improvisation. Many of the famous comedians you see on television today received their start of their career on the stage of Second City. Did you know there are some seriously funny and successful comedians to come from Chicago? Comedians from the late great Bernie Mac, Robin Williams, Kathy Griffin, Jim Belushi, Mona Aburmishan, Brian the Wildcat Smith, Ballhead Phillips, Betty White, Richard Pryor, and Melissa McCarthy, just to name a few, all hailed from the wonderful city of Chicago. Comedy is still segregated in Chicago. It's not just about races either. Comedians have to worry about making crowds laugh up north just as much as the other sides of Chicago. It has been said that the same show that you will receive about $2,000 for on the north side, you may make about $300 out south. All in all, if you can make an audience laugh in Chicago, whether it's a north, south, east, or west crowd, you can make it anywhere in the world. As a Muslim, not only your nationality and background, as a female, how were you able to break into the comedy scene? Like, what was that background aspect for you?
So I think the most important thing that really showed up was as soon as no matter what room it was, remember I said the city is very segregated, no matter what stage I was on, as soon as I said, kind of like, I know you think I'm Puerto Rican, but I'm a Palestinian Muslim, right?
When we saw, and I don't mean to cut you off,
No.
when Dana was introducing you and showing us different background and pieces where you were, we was like, she looks Latino.
Yeah. Which is perfect because then people are like, huh, like,
Who are you?
right, who am I? But also, I get to represent you. When I lived in Germany, I look half Turkish, and the minority in Germany is Turks. So when they saw me, like, oh, you're one of us, I'm like, I am one of you, even though I'm not, but I am, you know. So, but on stage, every time I said I was a Palestinian Muslim woman, everyone kind of leaned in a little. Because
Got their attention.
yeah, and despite all the stuff the chaos of America, we really are a resilient, understanding community. I mean, this is going to seem so silly, but after 9/11, everyone knew, first off, where Afghanistan was. Everyone knew what homeless was. They knew their hookah bars opened up. I mean, when we want to know, we actually want to know, and we kind of want to know from love. We want to understand. So that's really what was going on. I was like, all right, tell me your story. Tell me your story, because you know you don't look like the girl that owns the liquor store that's over in Marquette Park that's treating me all some kind of way. You don't talk. You're not like that. So, or tell me more. Or how I want to know how we're the same. And so when I say like I dance too hard. Whenever there's some, I'm a house head and I dance too hard, and I know I'm getting older because I keep throwing my back out because I'm dancing too hard. You know what I'm saying? Everyone, right? Everyone can relate with that. And that's my truth. That's really like, I literally gave myself whiplash because I was dancing so hard, like that. And that's just me telling my truth on stage. And one of the things that's key is because everyone wants to hear my story, and because it's important that I share my authentic truth, I can't shapeshift. So one of the big mistakes, and it's too bad that Jokes and Notes isn't here right now, but you could always see the comics that try to talk black when they were in a black audience. It's like, man, you had that same joke on the North Side. You were not delivering it that way, and you had a different personality. Be integrous. And every white comic that killed at Jokes and Notes is because they were being themselves. They were just, hey man, like I like cinnamon. I don't know, whatever, cinnamon toast, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So speaking my truth, and everyone really did want to hear what an Arab Muslim chick who kind of looks Puerto Rican has to say.
You're also a 5-time winner at Showtime at the Apollo.
Yes.
So the Saiyan Man never came and put that little cane around your neck and snatched you out.
Well, I won 5 times.
Oh, but you did get snatched once.
I got booed when they brought me back for the championship, and that's crazy because the people that saw me get booed never saw me win.
Oh.
So it was like aunties calling, like, baby, I saw what they did to you. That old lady with the curl came up there. You okay? You want some pie? You want some casserole? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. And getting booed is one thing. I've been booed a couple of times. When you get booed on TV, it's forever.
Yeah.
So then I went through getting booed, and then soon as I stepped off the ledge, I got back to myself. Then they showed the rerun of me getting booed. So I had to go through that all over again with the old lady.
One more
It
time.
was horrible, but I learned a valuable lesson. Always bring your A game, no matter what. I was trying some new jokes, and I dissed the women, then I dissed the guys, and then the old lady stood up and like got the biggest breath. It was like, boo! And I was like, boo! And my friends was like, no! It was all slow motion.
Aww.
It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, but you made it. You got 5 times without getting booed.
Yeah, and that's hard to do.
Especially for a comic. Comics don't make it real far on the Apollo.
They don't.
So,
you've got, and that's the thing about an audience. You've got about 30 seconds to a minute for the crowd to like you. From the time you walk on stage, they're judging you, the way you look, your hair, your outfit. They're judging. So they have to like you to listen to you.
Absolutely.
The stories of the men and women who make us laugh are often forgotten. It's unknown how many comedians struggled with mental illness. However, many have made the issue an integral part of their shows. Robin Williams, Sarah Silverman, Martin Lawrence, Ellen DeGeneres, just to name a few. Shy Connections created All Jokes Aside to highlight the highs and lows of a comedian's journey. We wanted to share their experiences in the comedy world off the stage with All Jokes Aside. A special thank you to all of the talented people who shared their stories with us on and off the camera. Mona Aburmishan, Brian Smith, Sampson McCormick, and Tony Schofield. In the words of Brian the Wildcat Smith, think outside the box or enjoying living in one.
This has been
Another episode
of Shy Connections.
Thanks for watching.